On January 20th, 2005, Pastor Willie Monnet's sermon had a troubling prediction for his congregation in New Orleans.
And God is really having mercy on America, really. Actually, and tremendously, brother. With all the things you see going on with the weather and all and stuff like that, New Orleans could be underwater 20, 30 feet in a split second.
Pastor Monnet started the inner city church in 1996, and it became a safe haven for many from drugs and violence. Located east of New Orleans in the city's 9th Ward, he named it Smoking for Jesus Ministries.
Revelation 3:16, Jesus states, "I'd rather you cold or hot, but if you're lukewarm," he said, "he will spill you out of his mouth." So we name it Smoking for Jesus Ministry, on fire for the Lord, red hot.
For Pastor Monnet, the church was family, and he was determined to keep them together and safe. In faith, he and members of the church started preparing for the impending disaster.
We haven't even gotten into a fraction of this thing yet. And believe me, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. We still have a 150-mile-an-hour hurricane out there, and the worst of it is yet to come.
They were calling the storm Katrina.
The news reporters showed how tremendous this storm would be, a Category 5. And everybody knew that at some point, New Orleans would flood.
On Saturday, August 27th, 2005, the order came to evacuate.
From the time that pastor told us to start boarding up, we were ripping and running and making sure we had enough stuff and supplies and materials. And you could imagine you're boarding up everything. Then when you finish boarding, you got to run home and try to hurry up and pack and get ready, get your family together and get ready to get out of Dodge. So it was pretty hectic.
Sunday morning, there was an eerie feeling there. Everything was quiet, and knowing that something was going to happen tremendous in that city.
That morning, a caravan of over 40 cars carrying over 200 church members left New Orleans and headed west towards Texas.
We got in the cars together and expected to take a journey that would probably only take about 5 to 6 hours. It turned into 12 hours.
They came to a retreat center in Lumberton, Texas. The first thing they did was hold a service.
God blessed that even in Lumberton, we were able to use their facilities. One of the things that really stood out about the whole ordeal is that no matter where we went, we always did church services.
By Wednesday, they were able to watch news reports of the devastation Katrina and the resulting storm surge was inflicting on their city and their neighborhood.
People are just getting so angry, and as you've been watching on TV, the floodwaters are still rising in New Orleans this morning.
Total devastation. Around Biloxi and Gulfport, a couple of streets in, it sounds like it's flattened.
New Orleans residents are still fleeing what can only be described as hell on earth.
The water was up to street signs. That was a reality for us that, wow, our city is underwater. Said, what do you think we should do? I mean, we're basically homeless. We have nowhere to go. And so we began to pray.
After 2 weeks living in the cramped quarters of the retreat center, some members drove back to New Orleans to survey the damage.
Church took about 4 feet of water. At 90% humidity, everything was molded. All our homes were devastated. We didn't have but 3 days clothes that we took with us for the journey.
They realized there was nothing left for them in New Orleans. Then, just 3 weeks after Katrina, they learned that another storm, Rita, was headed straight for Lumberton.
We didn't know which way to turn, but God did. And he had everything laid out already. All we had to do was just, so to say, take our hands off the wheel and trust him.
They headed further west to the Texas Hill Country. Because of the millions fleeing the storm, a 5-hour drive took them 19 hours. But everywhere they went, they say God provided all they needed for their journey.
Just to see other churches, they open up the doors to us and places just to be able to go, because that's unusual to run around with 200 people and then trying to find somewhere to house them. Every step of the journey, everything we needed was always there, and no matter from food, from clothing.
40 days after leaving New Orleans, the church found what they call their promised land in the Texas Hill Country town of Marble Falls. It just so happened a brand new apartment complex had just opened.
Nobody lived in it. They needed people to live in their apartment complex. So God sent all these families that needed a place. We didn't have any furniture, so everything was given at that time to 52 families or more. That was God's miraculous given manna in the wilderness.
Eventually, the pastor heard of a nearby property in Burnett, Texas that was for sale, which included a church, land, and several adjacent buildings.
When God opened up this place and the man wanted to sell this place, called us and said that y'all are an ideal match for the property. That's part of this miracle. How would God know that we needed these dormitories, we needed property to build our house, we need a church, we need administration, we need a cafeteria, we need a gymnasium for our children, we need playground. Everything was here already. God had prepared everything. Everything was ready.
Since settling in the area, the church and its members have flourished. Their many ministries have provided vital services to the community. They even opened up a Cajun seafood restaurant, bringing a little taste of New Orleans to the Texas Hill Country.
It was definitely a faith journey because we didn't know where we were going. We knew that God had a plan. We knew that God had a plan.
I say like Moses, I didn't do this, God did it. We didn't, people ask us all the time, how did you choose Marble Falls? We didn't know it existed. You're talking walking by faith now, just trusting God,